I did a review on the CyberPower PC Gamer Supreme, and it came with a case with a pretty similar look to this case. This is the Phanteks Evolv X2, and it's a little on the higher side with pricing. I think I picked it up for $179.99, but there was also some shipping involved. And it being the price it is, I thought I'd take a look at this case to see what you get for the price, see if it's worth the money. We'll take a look at the build quality, and maybe we'll build a PC in it to see what that experience is like. And we'll compare it to the CyberPower PC Gamer Supreme case, which turned out to be a Phanteks case. We're gonna take this apart and take a look at it and see what we've got. So let's take a look. And the top panel looks pretty similar. It does not have a removable top filter, just like the other case. And there's the connector for the RGB strip right there, that LED strip that's underneath right here. And the power and reset buttons, same place. And it looks like this bracket for the AIO comes out. Ah, it slides. Like that. Okay, that's interesting. Looks like the back comes out. Take some decent pressure to push this in so that this comes out or swings out. And you can take it off. And it looks like we got some tie points right here with some screws in it. That's interesting. These straps right here have a screw in them. And then looks like we've got an SSD mounting plate right there. And we've got a decent number of tie points, it looks like. And some vertical and horizontal Velcro straps. And here's the back of that GPU bracket where you can actually slide it up and down. And you can slide it up and down with depending on the position of your GPU. And it's metal. That's nice. That's a nice touch. I like that. I like the fact that it's metal. Other case is plastic, so I'm not sure how easy it is to do it with this. But once you've got it in a certain position, you could potentially, like if you have the screws loose, you can kind of slide it and then position it and then tighten it down. Looks like there's plenty of room to work with. All the cables are white. There's that ketchup and mustard HD audio cable. I always hated that. Look, the only case that I've come across is the Okino Cypress 3. They did an all, and it was a black and wood case. If you haven't seen that video, go ahead and check that out if you'd like. But the HD audio cable had all black right here to cover the horrible looking multicolored wires. They're the only case that I've come across so far that did that. Comes out. Yeah. Okay, for drive cage. That's a nice touch for a 3.5-inch drive cage. Looks like a crack of or fissure of some kind. It's weird. The shape that it's in and where it is, it's just a weird thing. All right. I don't think this front comes off. Maybe it does. No, I don't think so. Not sure if the camera's going to catch it, but right here looks like a sliding nubs, where it looks like the glass should be able to slide out. It looks like, let's see, because it looks like if I take this screw out right here, then it might be able to slide out. Maybe not. Feels like it would. Yeah, see, it's moving a little on the bottom, but not at the top. Well, let's just leave it in for now. But it looks like it would be able to slide out, because if, see that? It looks like, it feels like it wants to slide out, but we're going to leave that in so I don't end up breaking the glass. It's not a good idea to spend $180 on a case that you can't use because you break the glass. Now the back here has this little vent system for the exhaust, and it looks like it takes a 120 millimeter fan with a couple of holes, access holes right there to cover it. It is plastic. I wish that they would have done like the brushed aluminum like they did with the GPU support bracket. That would have been a nice touch. And I don't know if you noticed, but I just noticed when I was removing the glass panels that there's this kind of wave thing that goes on right here, which is kind of interesting kind of shape. And this, which by the way was sitting loose in the case, which I'll talk about later when we talk about the things I found in the case. But this looks like it slides maybe this way. No, it goes this way. I wonder if it can go in this way. It goes in that way. Anyways, let's see here. We got 3, 6, 9 standoffs, so that's good. All the standoffs seem pretty secure. This one was like just a hair loose, but not anything concerning. Oh, and I didn't notice before, but there's a couple of, that's where the screwed Velcro straps are coming into play. So that's interesting. It does have a couple of USB type A ports and a USB type C port. And this is interesting. That is really interesting. It's plastic right there, but this feels like aluminum. And this is, I believe, thin aluminum with plastic around it on the inside, which is it's kind of nice. The brushed aluminum look looks nice. Always like that, especially with white cases. But going back to this is just a cover for the back I/O stuff. There it goes. Okay. You just got to slot it in right. But yeah, and it's kind of curved right there so that you can get a finger hold and just pull it out, which is kind of interesting. It's a nice little touch, I think. Covers up all the screws. All right, so there's your case. It's got a nice build quality to it, and the case is it has a pretty sturdy feel to it. There's no bending or anything, no give. So that's good. Let's compare this to the CyberPower PC case, and then maybe we'll do a build in it. All right, so the main thing that stands out from a different standpoint is the height. The CyberPower PC case stands at 20 7/8 inch in height, whereas the Evolv X2 stands at 23 inches in height. As far as the width and depth goes, they're the same, both measuring in at 9 inches by 17 7/8 inch. Both of them only take 360 millimeter AIOs at the top or bottom, or 120 millimeter fans. Same thing with the rear exhaust. Other differences on the back side is, as you can see on the Evolv X2, there was a plate that you could remove to expose a hard drive storage cage, whereas the CyberPower PC doesn't have it. You also have a little more room on the bottom for cable management on the X2 than on the CyberPower PC Phanteks case. The other difference is that on the back side, at least, there was a SSD sled, whereas the CyberPower PC case didn't have that. You also have a couple of extra tie points, those Velcro straps that are held down by those screws. And the GPU bracket for the Evolv X2 is metal, whereas you've got plastic on the CyberPower PC case. Not a lot of differences on the back, but you do have one extra I/O backplate right there, where 7 is on the CyberPower PC, and then you've got 8 on that Evolv X2. The back also sits a little deeper on the Evolv X2, which gives you a little more room for cable management, which is what those Velcro straps on the back are for. And towards the top, there was a bracket that you can remove, which makes me think that it gives you a little more options for cable management. But yeah, it was kind of interesting that I just noticed that. Moving to the front, as you can see, that part of the reason why the Evolv X2 sits higher than the CyberPower version of it is because it has a footing on the bottom where it lifts it up a little bit more and gives you a little more space for airflow for intake fans. The audio jack and the 2 USB Type A's and the USB Type C is a little more towards the front on the Evolv X2 than the other case. And then you've got straighter lines as far as the metal facade that you've got on the side, the top, and the bottom. I like the straight lines actually better. And I believe that at least the plating on the Evolv X2 is metal and it's backed by some plastic. Whereas on the CyberPower PC case, that's all plastic. It has a kind of a metallic paint job on it, but it's all plastic. The motherboard tray has a few minor differences, but overall it's pretty much the same. There's a little recess spot towards the bottom of the motherboard tray. That's where the sled for SSDs screws in, and that's so that, you know, the screw doesn't touch the back of the motherboard. The bottom tray for the bottom intake fans, or AIO, comes out, whereas on the CyberPower PC, I don't believe that that comes out. Although I didn't take out the fans, looking closely at it, it doesn't look like it comes out, whereas again, on the Evolv X2, it does come out. As you can see on the top, there's not a lot of differences. The main difference is, of course, the AIO tray for the Evolv X2 does come out, whereas the mounting area for the AIO on the CyberPower PC version does not come out, making it a little bit tougher to, one, cable manage, and two, do a proper install of the AIO or fan. And as you can see, it sits a little bit deeper on the Evolv X2 case, giving you a little more room to work in, especially on the cable management side of things. One final note on the back of the cases: the Evolv X2 did come with a cover plate that is on hinges, which gives it kind of a nicer, cleaner look to it when everything's done and cable managed. All right, so that's the build quality, and comparing it to the lower end Phanteks Evolv case. I'm gonna call it the X1 because, you know, I don't have a name for it, and Phanteks didn't give me a name for it, and I couldn't find a name for it. It's not available for purchase individually. Overall, it's a pretty good case. I kind of like it, so I'm kind of excited to build in it and see what the build experience is like. All right, so let's do that. All right, I'm gonna take a break because I'm getting pissed. That's the Phanteks Evolv X2. It's a good looking case. It came out pretty nice. I had a couple of issues with this case, which kind of downgraded its value to me because of the frustrations. So I wanted to go over that stuff, and so handy dandy phone with the notes on it. All right, so as I said before, the height is the main difference between that CyberPower PC case versus this case as far as dimensions go. There's a lot of other things that I pointed out while I was taking a closer look at the case before I built in it, and so I'm not going to repeat myself with that stuff. The only intake area that you have is the bottom here. In the bottom here, you've got a lot of cables down here that are potentially blocking some of the airflow, right? And the thermals weren't all that concerning. As you can see right here at idle, the CPU, which is 14900KF, is at 15C. So it's pretty chill. Under load, it did fine. There was nothing concerning there. But I think that's more because the AIO is good. It's the Thermalright Frozen Warframe AIO, which I think has a nice look to it. So the issue here is, I started rambling, huh? Yeah. The issue here is the cable management and the area that you have to work in kind of limits what components that you can use. And I'll get back to the cable management here in a little bit, but I was a little disappointed with only being able to put in 360 AIO. Not because I had planned on putting in a larger AIO, I just thought was a little disappointed that that's the route that they chose. Now that being said, there was an issue in installing this AIO. And I'll throw some pictures up here and so you can have a closer look. It wouldn't fit with the mounting bracket that it came with, at least not in the orientation that it was in. So when I found out that it was going to be kind of like this and not secure to the top, meaning I couldn't put the screws or slide the bracket into the mounting screws, I get a little frustrated, right? And so then I decided, okay, well, I've got a 240 mil, but then a 240 mil would look kind of weird in a case like this because of how panoramic it is. And so I decided to put in the Peerless Assassin. But then I was thinking about it after I took a couple of breaks because I was a little frustrated. Actually, I was a lot frustrated. But while I was taking those breaks, I thought, well, what if I could, because the bracket sits kind of like in a dish kind of thing. And so if I flipped it, then it would sit higher, which would give it the clearance that it might need in order to fit that 360. But the securing screws that had the little plastic gaskets on it where you could slide the sled right in there to secure it, that would no longer be a thing. So that bracket would end up sitting loose up there, and didn't like that because it's noise and vibrations and it possibly sliding around if I move the case and things like that. So what I did was I came up with a solution for the mounting brackets for AM4, AM5 brackets for, air coolers and AIOs come with like taller screws, right? They're about this long. I think I took a picture of it. If I did, I'll show that to you right now. And so what I did was I replaced the tiny short screws that was in there to mount the AIO bracket and replaced them with the tall screws, and I screwed them down far enough that when I inverted the tray, it would sit on that lip higher, but I would still be able to secure it with those screws. And I just used 4 screws. I think there was like a total of 8 screws for securing it the original way. but 4 screws seemed like enough, especially with the little plastic O-rings or gaskets or whatever you want to call them. So it worked out fine, but you know, it took me the better part of a half a day to figure out that part and come up with that idea, and then, you know, remove the Peerless Assassin once I installed that, and then installing this AIO. Ended up looking good, but just be aware that not all AIOs are going to fit in here. I'll give you the measurements right here for the thermal weight, for the for the for the Thermalright frozen warframe, so that you're aware that this size is not going to fit properly without modifying how you're going to install it. Did want to cover the cable management side of things, so that, you know, you got all the cables that are going to fit in here, and it's not like it's a dual chamber case, right, where you've got plenty of room to work with on cables. You don't have a lot of room. You have maybe this much depth to work in on the backside for routing your cables, and then you've got this whole area right here that you can move cables into and have them set. The problem with that is, of course, it kind of blocks out these intake fans at the bottom, which are the only intake fans that you can have unless you decided to do an intake back here. So this is a slightly negative airflow kind of build right now, the way it's built. I've got 4 exhausts and 3 intakes. And so because the cables are down there, it kind of restricts the airflow for the intake fans a little bit, which was kind of concerning to me at first, but it didn't seem to cause a big issue when it came to thermals or anything like that. So overall, I was glad to find out that it wasn't going to impact it too much, if at all. But at the same time, the other problem is that back door that I showed you earlier when we were taking a closer look at the case, that swings open. You can pull that out and do your cable management, but if you don't do it well, then that back door, when you put it back on, isn't going to swing all the way shut. And if it doesn't swing all the way shut, then you can't put the back glass panel back on, right? So unless, you know, you forego that back door, which then shows all the cables on the other side. So just be aware that you're gonna want to cable manage smartly and figure everything out before you start throwing cables in there, which is what I did, because, you know, that's how I'm used to doing it. And so, and normally it works out for me on the cable management side. It usually ends up looking clean on most of my builds. But on this one, it was a bit rough. So yeah, just be aware of that. It looks nice, it feels nice, it's got some good things about it, but the bad things about it kind of outweighs the good things, in my opinion. I don't think I'd pay more than 130 bucks for this case, knowing what I know now. It's a good case. As far as looks and everything goes, it's unique, and that's the reason why I wanted to try this case out and do a review on it. But for 170, 175, $180, whatever I paid for it, yeah, that's absolutely, there's much better cases out there for that price range than this case. They don't look as unique, but they're a lot easier to work in. They look just as nice. So yeah, I wouldn't buy this case for that price. So if you're looking at this case, you know, if you want that unique look and you're willing to pay that extra and suffer the frustrations that you're inevitably going to have, then yeah, by all means, don't let me stop you. But if you don't want cable management frustrations, if you don't want frustrations with the size of the fans that you're going to want to install, nor the AIO that you want to install, if you don't want those kind of frustrations, especially if you've got a 360 AIO and you're not sure if it's going to fit properly without, you know, modding the case or modding the install process, if you don't want those kind of headaches, then I would avoid this case. that's the review for the Phanteks Evolv X2. Hope you enjoyed the video and the information I provided. And if you got any questions or comments, feel free to write them down and I'll respond to them as soon as I see them. And hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed what you saw. It helps out the channel a ton. And let me know your thoughts on the case. And if you had to pick an alternative case at the same price point, what case would you pick? Anyways, thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you in the next one.